Trump's deplorables and the dumbest bill in America. This is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials. And the Millennials joining me today are Andrew the Fuji Fulginiti and Ryan the Squirrel Brady.
Howdy.
And our producer, Adam Katora. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Good.
So President Trump spoke for an hour and a half during his re-election announcement, an hour and a half, typical Trump. And at one point, the president contrasted himself to pretty much all the Democratic candidates as well as all of the Democrats who are supporting them. And we have a clip on this. Actually, it was pretty good. Clearly, someone wrote this for him because he had a prepared speech, which he went off on many times, as he always does. But here's the clip.
And nothing would make us happier than to be able to work with Democrats to rebuild our nation's infrastructure, to bring down drug prices, to compete with other countries, and to dominate the future as one American team. It can happen. It can happen.
Yeah, you can do it. Lower drug prices. I'm all for that.
It can happen. It's looking like the Democratic Party does not want to do that, but it can happen, and it very well might. There's so many great things we can do right now in a bipartisan way, but they've been afflicted with an ideological sickness that protects foreign borders, but refuses to protect our borders, that promotes jobs overseas, but allows our factories to close, that promotes democracy abroad, but shreds our Constitution at home, that declares support for free speech and free thought, but relentlessly suppresses them both, and that constantly savages the heroes of American law enforcement. We don't want that.
And there you have it. There's Trump, classic Trump, but he's comparing and contrasting himself to the Democratic Party as it stands today. Andrew, what do you think about that? Fuj?
Yeah, I thought that was great. I mean, I was looking forward to him contrasting the two parties, like the whole speech, and he finally got to it there at the end. I think what's interesting is that a few of those points are positions that Democrats actually support, but they just don't want to do it with him. They don't want to work with him. I mean, he's pushing good ideas. I mean, they just don't want to have him be the person that passes that legislation or gets the accomplishment.
Exactly. Squirrel, come on. Thoughts on this?
The technique he's using to contrast between himself and the Republican Party with the Democrats is a very good speech technique, a very good way to generate support. And being bipartisanship and all these initiatives such as infrastructure is great and all, but unfortunately, Trump being Trump sometimes puts him in a hole where, he can be his own worst enemy. Where it's like he has some goodwill with people. Like he was agreeing with Bernie Sanders a while back about infrastructure, but then it didn't go anywhere because everyone's grandstanding. You have all that political, muck getting in the way and clogging up the gears of the machine going to actually do this.
I said this in the previous mini podcast that there were so many people and there was such high energy with cameras flashing all over the floor. I mean, at this particular this announcement for his reelection, so many people actually looked like an RNC convention, and it looked like a speech that a candidate who just got nominated would give. That's how many people were there. I mean, there was so much energy compared to what we're seeing on the other side. I mean, what did you guys think about the level of energy?
I think I saw like an announcement pump up amp video like a day or two before it, and it was like really well made, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, the energy was insane. I mean, you look at the other side, and Trump called Joe Biden Sleepy Joe. I mean, that's the vibe you get from the other
Trump,
side,
though.
right? I mean, the only person that you can see things like that, at least during the last election cycle, was Sanders. He had some pretty impressive rallies, but you haven't seen anything like to that extent, I don't think, thus far for this campaign.
And not gonna lie though, probably an unpopular. I thought Trump wasn't gonna go for his reelection. Not gonna lie, because I thought he's like 4 years done. Don't want to risk losing anything.
You thought he wasn't going to run again?
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to run again for sure. For half through, yeah, I honestly did think that. So he's now running for re-election. So we got a wild ride ahead of us, and it's going to be very interesting, especially when the Democratic primary is over.
Absolutely. And this podcast is about Trump and the deplorables, and we're not using that word, of course, because we think that the folks that are listening to us are deplorables. We actually think it's funny. We actually think it's a compliment because the Democrats actually, that's what they call the Trump supporters, right?
And the compliment to that sense is when Hillary Clinton used it as almost a derogatory term for Trump supporters, it almost became and adopted as a badge of honor to be a deplorable. It's like, yeah, I believe in these things that you despise and et cetera, et cetera. You want to take away my jobs and so rolling. It's like, yeah, I'm a deplorable. Let's go for it.
I think Trump highlighted that really well last night when he said it's pretty incredible. He's like, that's politics for you. How one word can change a campaign. He said he thinks that one word, calling his supporters, changed the course of that campaign.
She lumped she was trying to go for a specific a group of people, but then actually attacked a bunch of other groups of people because everyone's trying to get based down on ethnic groups and their label categories, societal status. It's like, whoa, somebody from both ends of the society of America are both looking for Trump, and you just called one person. It's like, whoa, hey, I'm not liking this.
And do you know during his inauguration, there were, of course, dozens of balls, right? One of the balls was called the Deplorable. And I actually went to that. I actually went to that, and it was
awesome.
incredible. How was that? It was such a great idea because, of course, you're there with like-minded people who were just like, yeah, I'm a deplorable, and people had they had hats that said I'm a deplorable, they had jackets that said I'm a deplorable, whatever you could possibly imagine. They had,
and that PAC or his campaign raised a lot of money with that, probably.
Absolutely. Speaking of deplorables, Ohio Democrat Congresswoman Marcia Fudge. She went on the House floor recently and read a letter from one of her constituents, which attacked Trump supporters. We have a clip on this. You have to hear it to believe it. Here she is.
I rise today to read a letter from a constituent, Pastor Dr. Ronald S. Williams. Mr. Williams asked the question, a mobster, a con man, gangster in the White House? I think so. It is glaringly apparent that many who support the present administration are either racist, steeped in religious beliefs, ignorant, or as my mother used to say, just plain dumb.
Yeah, so Trump supporters, the deplorables, are dumb. They're racist. Can you guys believe this?
She just galvanized a lot of Trump supporters right there with that.
I mean, it's doubling down on the deplorable strategy, right? I can't believe that a sitting U.S. Congresswoman gets up on the floor and reads an email with these broad stroke generalizations about all the people. It's like, why do they think attacking voters is a good strategy for winning a campaign?
And I agree, it's not strategic in any sense, but then again, that chamber has been used up by both parties to go after each other and say some really crazy stuff.
Yeah, but they're going after each other. They're not going after the voters, right? Instead of attacking Trump, they're attacking his voters.
Yeah, that's true too.
But they need to win.
Yes, you need some of those voters in order to gain a majority.
Especially in a battleground state.
Yes, exactly. So here she is reading this. I mean, what an idiot. I mean, what you guys said, they're doubling down on this stupid strategy of saying, you know what, half the country, they're deplorables. They're awful. These are really bad people. And, they're religious or they are racist or, you name all of the really bad words. And, of course, that's what they're calling you. I mean, it's nuts.
Don't get censored now.
I know. I want to be careful because they can say it, of course, but we can't, naturally.
Right. Is Representative Fudge first term?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I gotta look that one up. It kind of feels like a first-term move.
Exactly.
I think she was called out of order by some.
That's like a slap on the wrist that never gets enforced. But
it never does. Exactly.
Especially when your party controls the House.
Yeah.
True.
So next up, Bernie Sanders addresses supporters at George Washington University, but he also responds to President Trump's, of course, speech during his re-election campaign in Florida. And so, of course, on the first hand, you had Bernie Sanders, who gave this huge policy speech at George Washington University where he really said nothing new. And then we also have a clip from Bernie talking about not just Trump, but of course, if you're talking about Trump, you're talking about his supporters, once again, going after the deplorables. And here is Bernie Sanders at his best.
So without going on much longer, let me just simply say this. We have a president who, as I've said many times, and I say this without any joy in my heart, we have a president who is a racist, who's a sexist, who is a homophobe, who is a xenophobe, and he is a religious bigot. And his strategy to win re-election is to divide the American people up based on the color of our skin, based on where we were born, based on our religion, based on our sexual orientation. And our job is not to allow him to do that. Our job is to bring the American people together around an agenda that works for all of us and not just the wealthy campaign contributors and the people on top.
So there he goes. He is actually dividing people along lines of the successful, those who work, those who are working hard, those who are trying to get ahead, and then everybody else. I mean, that's what socialists do, right? I mean, and he's attacking the deplorables. He's attacking the Trump voters. What do you guys think about that? It's classic Bernie, right?
Yeah, Bernie's almost going on the lines of an old Greek philosopher. Everyone kind of like, okay, we listen to you, but I don't know if we're actually going to implement that system yet, or if ever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is more of this typical same strategy from Bernie. He's attacking the president. He's not attacking the policies. Trump did his whole speech about here's all the great successes. He says he thinks we're the greatest economically we've ever been in history. And all Bernie can say is he's a racist. He's dividing us. And there's no examples of that, right? I mean, he's attacking Trump and his base instead of saying here's why I think we can be better economically, or actually pitching, a strategy.
Granted, though, we might get him on the religious part, though, to be honest.
The religious bigot.
Well, him being religious.
Who being religious?
Trump.
Oh, so meaning what?
I don't know.
Come on, squirrel. I want to hear this.
No, come on.
You got me going now.
Oh, yeah. No, come on. Do you think honestly Trump, with his history of escapades throughout the years, like him being is really hardcore religious and files and is a Bible beater? Unless he's newfound.
But you have to understand something. When Bernie Sanders or other opponents of the president say that, they are by definition attacking all of his voters as well.
Oh, that's of course.
Many
He's attacking
of whom
the Bible
are
Belt.
religious.
Yeah.
And the thing is for some reason in the Democratic Party, there's something wrong in their eyes with people who are religious. I don't know. I think there's something wrong with them because what do you believe in if you're not religious, right?
Yeah, that's true. No, that's really true too.
And the Wall Street Journal wrote about Bernie Sanders, a really great thing about socialism, and how Bernie Sanders talks about FDR, how FDR's social programs were fantastic and so forth. The Journal said FDR's social programs were based on the principle of work in return for benefits. You had to actually work, like the Workers' Progress Administration, and of course the idea of Social Security. You didn't get Social Security if you didn't work, right? But what Sanders and the New Democrats are doing, what they're saying now is you don't have to work at all, right?
Yeah, pretty. It sounds like it's, and also you get universal basic incomes again. We're going down this rabbit hole. It's going to be endless before you know it. It's going to be like, hey, where's all the money gone?
Yeah, UBI is the definition of getting stuff for free, right? No work at all. I mean, at least you can rationalize FDR's stuff because there was a work component of it. I mean, a lot of people still hate it, right? They say it's the beginning of the huge bloating of the federal government and social welfare program, but there was that work component, right?
And to that point, it's FDR used a tried and true example in philosophy. Guess who also used that? Captain John Smith in Jamestown. If you don't work, you don't eat.
Okay, I think that was maybe squirrely, but that's all right.
Gonna give him points for historical accuracy.
Actually, that was very good. That was very good.
No squirrel there.
So next up we have AOC says that ICE is running concentration camps. I can't believe this.
Oh boy.
I can't believe anyone would say this, but we do have a clip. You have to listen to it to believe it. Here's the clip.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border, and that is exactly what they are. They are concentration camps. And if that doesn't bother you, we can have, okay, whatever. I want to talk to the people that are concerned enough with humanity to say that we should not, that never again means something.
And the idea that any voter in America would ever believe this woman when she says that ICE is engaging in concentration camps and they're running concentration camps, and which of course by definition means that you are putting people in prison and then systematically killing them. That's really what that means to me. Apparently, that's what she thinks is happening. Gentlemen, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Concentration camp to me is either it's Auschwitz or Dachau, and the rest over in Europe in World War II, what we fought to stop. So that's my definition of concentration camp.
She's on a tear right now, right? She's saying the U.S. is running concentration camps, and Amazon is paying people starvation wages. I mean, this is a terrible experiment gone wrong. The AOC story, right?
Yes.
I mean, she's limited in her knowledge and clearly historical accuracy. She doesn't know anything about history. If she thinks what's happening on the border, enforcing laws and putting people, and actually we're providing, all kinds of services to people, and she thinks is comparing that to concentration camps.
Aren't they providing English classes and like education for the children and stuff like that in those camps? And not camps, but like holding facilities rather.
We have to feed them. We have to provide them medical care. We have to house them. We have to
screen them from diseases too, because you don't know what's coming in. Also, other people are probably coming up through the border.
They need legal services.
Yes, they have to interview the children separately to make sure that the children weren't human trafficked on the way here. They also have to make sure that the children were not, of course, being accompanied by members of the cartel or MS-13, and that because sometimes they use children who really aren't their own children to be able to get into the United States. So, I mean, these guys, these folks at ICE, these are actually American heroes, and yet she's saying that these are...
they always use the argument of humanity. It drives me crazy that, like, oh, because you're enforcing your laws, you're against humanity. It's like, if you actually knew what we were doing, like, we care about human rights laws and all of those things. We're probably one of the greatest defenders of human rights laws in the world, right?
Absolutely.
And she's... Yeah, it just drives me crazy.
It does.
The thing is, though, I can speak for everyone in this room. We're all pro-immigration here. Honestly, if you think we're anti-immigration, you're kind of crazy.
We're pro-legal immigration.
Well, yes.
We're pro-legal immigration.
Usually, I hope that goes without saying, and the system does need to be fixed and overhauled. I get that. But also, a founding principle of actually a legitimate state is actually enforcing and having defined borders. If you don't enforce the borders and control who comes in and goes, you don't know what's being brought in. It could be diseases. It could be actually weapons and arms and drugs, which we are seeing with drugs and guns. AKA Fast and Furious, but that's besides the point.
But I mean, can you imagine that? Do people who are her followers on social media, AOC's followers, do they believe this? Do they believe this?
Oh, they probably do, and they don't care about the truth.
I mean, this would see these kinds of awful comments. I mean, she's basically saying that ICE, they are part of the deplorables. They're saying that people that support ICE and support a border, they are part of the deplorables, which is why we're talking about this, of course, in this episode. I mean, go ahead.
Words have power. So words can be used to bring people together or to divide. And it's also how you use them in the context and the intonation of the voice you use. And the way she's doing it, she's trying to draw a hard line on this and say, let's do open borders. This is wrong, et cetera, et cetera. And we have a historical record of almost every single politician using that as a way to draw people, not maybe that subject matter, but they've used words to drive a point. Maybe it's not always factual and true, but they drive a point to own the message and own the conversation and drive it to a specific goal. We've seen that all the time.
Absolutely. And speaking of deplorables, the Texas Senate passes and Governor Abbott signed what's known as the Save Chick-fil-A bill.
Can't believe that exists.
And the reason why this bill became necessary in Texas, at least with the Republicans in Texas, is that I believe it was the city of San Antonio that decided that they were not going to allow Chick-fil-A in their airport. And as a result of that, you know, one of the members of the state Senate, I think, or perhaps it was the state house, I'm not really sure, but we have a clip on this where he talked about the fact that he wanted to make it a free country where you could say and give money to whoever you wanted to and have free speech, but at the same time run your business and not be coerced by government. Here's the clip.
It's funny, we actually filed that bill before anything happened in San Antonio, but it kind of clarified the reason and need for it. So I push back against the premise that it's in any way discriminatory. It helps, I tell people it helps Chick-fil-A, but it also helps Ben and Jerry's. You know, it treats everybody equally, everybody the same. I don't care who you are, what you believe. The government should not penalize you for those beliefs.
So the bill says it does not allow the government to take any adverse action against any contractor or individual or business because of their religious beliefs. And as that gentleman just said, it doesn't matter whether you're Ben and Jerry's or whether you're Chick-fil-A, you should be equally protected. What do you guys think?
You're going to having a lot of angry air travelers not having their Chick-fil-A before a flight. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the millennials love Chick-fil-A. So.
Oh, yeah.
I keep thinking about Chick-fil-A on Sundays, and I get really upset about that. They're not open on Sundays. You always want Chick-fil-A on Sundays.
Maybe the millennials are all deplorables. Maybe all of them, including the liberal millennials, because apparently they all love Chick-fil-A, except for, you know, maybe some of the really crazy ones.
So they mentioned part of the reasoning behind this bill.
Yeah. That's Adam Couture, by the way. Go ahead,
Why
Adam.
they didn't want to have the Chick-fil-A in the airport was because they didn't want people to feel unwelcome. So I think it might be those cows that are pushing for all the people to eat the chicken. They don't want to be eaten, so they.
Yeah, there's a
maybe it's the chicken.
cow conspiracy.
Yeah, there's a super pack of Wisconsin cows saying, "Hey, eat the chicken."
Who doesn't feel welcome by a Chick-fil-A? It's delicious.
But the crazy thing is, it's even necessary for a bill like this to pass a bill. Like, can you imagine?
It's kind of sad, actually.
That's what we're going to. I mean, Adam, we were talking about this before we started the podcast. I mean, the need for this, right, is to protect capitalism and the free market, because the socialist, I guess, government in San Antonio is basically saying, we want your business here. Your business, we want you to provide free healthcare. We want you to provide all of these incentives, right, to your employees, but we want to dictate everything about your business.
Exactly. And you can't precisely, and you can't have any kind of free speech by using money from your business. And even if you're saying it individually, they're making a nexus between you personally and your business and saying, well, your business is, of course, racist because of the fact of what you're doing in your private life.
Right. They want to strip all business rights.
I mean, let's just say you don't agree with the founders and the management team at Chick-fil-A. Then don't go there, right? Don't go. Who cares?
There's plenty of other options.
Freedom of choice, yeah.
Right, exactly. So we have a funny story. A dad in Texas uses a leaf blower. Yes, a leaf blower, and he's blowing it on his daughter because she's dressed up in her prom dress, and he decided, well, he needed some wind because if she looked like the wind was blowing her hair and her dress, it would make a really good picture. Now, we'll show this to you on Facebook, but because it's really a video thing, but we do have sound effects.
There it is.
and so that's what it sounded like. That's actually from the clip. I just want you guys to know that typically when I'm not sure if it was an electric leaf blower either.
No, two-stroke gas had to be.
I think so too. In which case, she probably smelled like gas by the time he was finished. So
this is a trend nationwide. Mark, you have daughters. I'm surprised you haven't done something like this for them. Instagram boyfriend is a thing. If you're an Instagram boyfriend, you're constantly taking pictures of the girl. Instagram dad, I guess, is the new thing now for daughters. If you don't have a boyfriend.
Now it's all about taking photos of Instagram boyfriends, taking photos of their Instagram girlfriends, saying, "Wow, poor guy."
Poor guy.
Sorry, I was censoring myself on that one.
Have your dads done anything like this? I mean, I'm just curious.
Hell no.
I mean, obviously not shine a blower at you.
I'm not.
I mean, you mean take a picture of us while we're in a dress? And
I'm not a.
What are
I'm
your
telling
kids into?
Chick-fil-A.
I'm not an Instagram model yet, but
He's not influencer yet. Going to start soon.
Right. Soon, yeah, right. Mark and the Millennials. Influencers, yes. And next up, we have the dumbest bill in America. Soon we'll have music to that, right, Adam? Yes, we will. Okay. So, the dumbest bill in America, Illinois Governor Pritzker, in all of his efforts to replace the flat tax in Illinois with a progressive income tax. Absolutely disastrous. We don't have a clip on this, but you can obviously imagine how stupid this is because it's not as though people aren't leaving Illinois in droves as it is. This is just going to make it worse. And everywhere this has been tried has been a failure. Gentlemen, your thoughts on the progressive income tax of course, you're going from a flat tax to a progressive income tax. Thoughts?
I'm just always intrigued by how they break down the different brackets, saying if you make this much money a year, what do you get? Like, what's the percentage of your tax that the state gets or the federal? That's why I always like to break down the brackets, like see how fair it is, or like say how much money you make, and then there's your percentage. But
right.
I'm not really a fan of that per se.
Yeah,
I mean, there's only been one other state that's tried this, right? Connecticut, and it was a disaster. And I was reading about this. Yeah, and it says like ever since they implemented this progressive tax, they've had a budget deficit in like 12 of the last 15 years, and taxes significantly have increased on the middle class, the people that they promised this tax increase.
And because they had that budget deficit, they probably started raising taxes across everything.
They've been raising tolls on highways and stuff, so that's been a big thing in Connecticut, raising toll fees.
Because it's never enough, right? I mean, the Wall Street Journal, get this. Here's direct from the Wall Street Journal. The state of Connecticut estimated the corporate income tax hike would raise $481 million over 2 years, but revenue increased by only $323 million because corporations moved out. $161 million a year, according to a new Yankee Institute report. Meantime, the state's Department of Economic and Community Development in Connecticut, whose job is to strengthen Connecticut's competitive position in 2016 alone, it spent $358 million in direct payments and loans to businesses to keep them there.
to your point right there, Mark, that was funny. I was actually trying to remember something. I read something way back when about Connecticut and a specific corporation called GE. I don't know if they left or they got one of those special deals with Connecticut because Connecticut didn't want to lose the GE headquarters. And I believe they were in Connecticut, and that was the whole deal because they were thinking about moving to New York because it was less tax burden, which would be very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
These states that want to implement these types of policies, what they need to do first is build a wall so people can't leave. Because, I mean, that's what people are going to do, right? They have the freedom to leave. I mean, Connecticut has this massive out-migration problem now. Everyone's leaving because they're getting taxed so high, and now it's spiraling out of control.
Yeah,
exactly.
The neighboring states enjoy it.
And Illinois has that problem already, so I'm surprised they're trying to do.
They already
something
have
with
that problem,
Yeah.
and here's the thing: Bernie
Most
Sanders
of the states red too, if you think about it.
You're right. Bernie Sanders talks about corporatism, this idea that corporations have too much influence and so forth. Here's with governments, that corporations influence governments too much. What I find fascinating is the Democrats raise taxes on corporations because they demonize them. And here you have a classic example in Connecticut, and of course soon Illinois, where the corporations have to be bought off to stay there. So you have this really ridiculous crony capitalism going on, which is just as awful as what he's trying to explain.
Yep.
So why not just keep taxes low and keep the jobs there?
Fair enough. I guess this might be solved. We can have this discussion another time, another episode of this podcast, but maybe repealing Citizens United might be the fix on that, because then corporations aren't considered people where they can do unlimited donations.
I don't think so.
So, thought.
Supreme Court, next up, Supreme Court rejects the atheists' attempt to scrub "In God We Trust" off of the United States currency. You know what? We don't have a clip on this, but once again, the Supreme Court rejected it because the atheists wanted to get rid of "In God We Trust" off of the U.S. currency. What do you gentlemen think about this? It's pretty fascinating.
It's a waste of time, waste of effort. I don't really get it.
Yeah, it was an interesting argument. I think the atheist was arguing that because I guess having that on there was against the First Amendment right of freedom to
separation of church and state, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting argument, but yeah, it's foolish.
Yeah. I mean, they want to remove.
Churlish.
Obviously, these are the atheists, right? The atheists want to remove anything that has the word God or any deism whatsoever, because naturally they believe in nothing, which is really hard to understand for me, quite frankly. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think at some point in your lifetime that this is going to happen, that they're going to be successful with it? I mean, obviously, I hope not.
I can't tell. I hope it doesn't happen, but there's a good chance of happening. Yeah, for sure.
I can see it happening. I mean, I believe in I believe in separation of church and state, but I kind of relate this to like the erasing of history and taking down historical monuments and stuff. Yeah, I mean,
right.
this was the reason it's on there is because it's what our founders, it has to do with our founders and everything. Yeah, so I could see there being an argument, and maybe someday down the road they'd try and take that out and take the under God out of the pledge.
I mean, for me, I feel like God has a vision for the way he wants men and women to govern themselves. And so if you don't have something to look toward as a model, then how can you possibly govern in a just way?
Yeah.
And I think really that's the way I see this. Otherwise, it's basically socialism. And of course, if as you guys remember,
Secular
in Marxism and in socialism, the first thing they get rid of course, other than getting rid of your guns, is they get rid of religion, because they want the state to become your religion. And that is, of course, why they also think that Trump's voters are deplorables, because they are religious and they think that they shouldn't be.
And the Chinese were very effective with that.
Yes, absolutely, because as we talked about in a previous episode, the Uyghurs are actually being put in not concentration camps, re-education camps.
because they're a minority Muslim population in China.
And you have to teach them to believe in the state, and the state becomes their religion versus actually their Turkic type religion. So it's interesting. I know.
Very.
So next up, an alligator has a knife in his head in Sugar Land, Texas. Apparently someone took a picture of an alligator, and this is true story. There's a knife sticking out of the top of his head. So do we have a clip on this? I'm not really sure. We don't have a clip. So I have to explain this.
I didn't want to get close enough to the alligator, so that's why there's no clip.
Field reporter Adam Katora.
So clearly somebody put the knife there, and it's stuck in quite well, and it's not going anywhere, and the alligator is swimming around, and of course it has this entire town of Sugar Land, Texas in a tizzy because this alligator
all right, where's my boy Crocodile Dundee? What happened to him? That must be his knife. He was going after a crocodile. Now that's a knife.
I mean, think about it. Yeah, it wasn't, if I remember seeing I think I saw the picture, it's not a large knife. I mean, somebody had to get really close to this alligator's head to stick that in there.
And alligator skin's tough, right? Especially on the skull.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm guessing.
Well, clearly it didn't kill it.
I don't think it feels very good though.
Well, also he has a small brain, so he probably missed it. So there you go.
He's got some street cred now, that alligator.
Do they have small brains? I don't even know.
I forget. I think someone did say they were small because Joe Rogan hates alligators, and he had a whole podcast on that. That was pretty funny.
I think they
so
are.
he wears alligator belts.
There's a certain spot on their head that you actually have to shoot to actually kill it. Yeah.
And next up, we have a device in technology, we love
A
talking
device.
about at least one thing in technology. It's a device. I'm not sure how else you would explain this. Okay. It attaches to your toilet, so you can retrofit it on your toilet, your existing toilet. You don't have to put a new one in. And so I'm calling it a device. And it adds a bidet feature to your toilet. And here's why we're talking about this, because we always love talking about technology, right? And what makes this interesting is because this is part of the whole movement by, in my opinion, many millennials, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea for me, by the way, but they want to get rid of paper, right? So, you don't want, we should have a paperless society, and we shouldn't have a society that throws paper. We should recycle and so forth. Okay, I understand that, but this is different, and we have a clip on it.
My name's James Ambergy, and I'm here to tell you to stop using toilet paper.
The Slim Glow is the most advanced bidet attachment. It's got those most wanted features, and it's just as easy to use and install.
It's ultra thin, reinforced, and has a dual nozzle. And as a
Reinforced.
customer favorite and industry first,
2 nozzles.
a battery powered nightlight.
Oh, wow.
It has 2 nozzles and a nightlight, just in case if you want to look.
What's the secondary trim level? What's the platinum level trim level? We have to drop a few more bucks on that.
Industry first nightlight. The bidet industry is being revolutionized before our eyes.
We got a disruptor in the industry right now.
And this is on Indiegogo. They're obviously raising money. And I put this up here because of this whole idea of going paperless. And I got to tell you guys something. I mean, here's the question. Here's an obvious question for millennials. So you retrofit the bidet, right? You use it. Well, then you're wet. So how do you dry yourself off if you don't use toilet paper?
Not even my bag. Not even going there.
I have very limited, I would say 0 experience with bidets. So
I'm really glad to hear that.
Well, you went to Europe. Did you encounter one?
I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did.
Must be in
but
mainland Europe.
I think
thing.
I'd avoid it. I mean, but the issue with this, I mean, if you get rid of paper, but you still got the water issue, they're going to complain about water, right? Water
Absolutely.
usage. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, this whole idea of, I mean, I know this is probably these people are probably part of the Green New Deal. They think this is a great idea. You're going to go green. In my opinion, a lot of these folks with the Green New Deal, they're probably going to walk around dirty all the time because they're like, no, I can't use water to clean myself for the shower because it's fresh water. I'm going to make it dirty. Right?
Yes. No doubt.
Maybe you just stick your rear end close to a windmill and it just generates force.
You're saying what they need is a fan attachment to this thing.
Yeah.
That's the next big innovation in this industry.
Solar powered, mind you.
But I have seen these things in some homes. I go to a friend's like pregame before I head out downtown. All of a sudden, like, there's a bidet installed on the toilet. Like, what's going on? Like, I didn't use it. My buddy did, said it was good, and it's like, all right, that's all you, man. I'm like, really? Squirrel. You're welcome for that one.
So I want to thank all of you Deplorables for listening to this episode. That's it. This is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials. I want to thank our Millennials, Andrew Fujiniti and Ryan the Squirrel Brady, and our producer, Adam Katora. Thank you for listening.